What should we see in Ohtani? 11 strikeouts. 4 innings. And a teammate who has played alongside the greatest names in baseball for over a decade, standing in the dugout, shaking his head, completely lost for words. Mookie Betts didn't say Ohtani was incredible. He didn't say he was the best he'd ever seen. He said something far more unsettling. He's not even human anymore. When a World Series champion, a Gold Glove outfielder, a man who has shared a clubhouse with Clayton Kershaw and Mike Trout says something like that, you stop. You listen. Because Mookie Betts doesn't speak carelessly. He chooses his words. And those words tell us something that the box score alone never could. So what is really happening inside the Dodgers clubhouse? What do his teammates actually feel when they watch Ohtani take the mound, not as a fan, not as a media observer, but as the man standing 40 feet away in the same uniform? And as Los Angeles chases a third consecutive championship, what role does Ohtani's evolution, from superstar to something entirely beyond classification, play in that pursuit? To answer that, we have to go deeper than the statistics. We have to go inside. It started, as it often does with Ohtani, quietly. Spring training at Camelback Ranch. Most players were still shaking off the rust of the off-season, loosening joints, finding their timing, easing into the rhythm of a new season. The mood was relaxed, even jovial. Veterans laughed in the outfield. Pitchers played light catch along the warning track. And then Ohtani took the mound. What happened in those 4 innings was not supposed to happen in spring training. Spring training is for maintenance, not dominance. It is for working out mechanics, not destroying hitters. But Ohtani did not seem to understand that distinction, or perhaps more accurately, he simply did not care about it. 11 strikeouts. 11. In 4 innings of a spring game, against hitters who were still finding their swings, Ohtani was already at full throttle. His fastball was sitting at 99 miles per hour. His sweeper was breaking so sharply that one batter literally laughed after swinging through it, not a nervous laugh, but a genuine, bewildered laugh, the kind that escapes you when you witness something that defies your expectations so completely that your body doesn't know how else to respond. And in the dugout, watching all of it, was Mookie Betts. Betts has been in professional baseball since 2011. He has faced every type of pitcher. He has stood in against Max Scherzer on his best days, against Jacob deGrom when he was untouchable, against countless arms that have made careers out of being impossible to hit. So when Betts walked into the post-session media availability and said, without hesitation, without dramatic pause, he's not even human anymore, it landed differently than a typical compliment. It wasn't hyperbole. Betts is not a man who exaggerates for the room. He is measured, thoughtful, precise. What he was communicating, in 6 words, was something that statistics and highlight reels have failed to fully capture. Ohtani is no longer developing. He is no longer reaching toward something. He has arrived somewhere that most of us, including those closest to him, don't yet have the language to properly describe. But what does that mean for the Dodgers? What does it mean to have someone like that in your clubhouse when you are chasing history? To understand the true feelings of the Dodgers, you have to separate what players say for the cameras from what they feel in the quiet moments. In public, the answers are gracious and measured. He makes everyone around him better. His work ethic is inspiring. These are real sentiments, but they are also safe ones. What is harder to articulate, and what several Dodgers sources have alluded to in various interviews throughout the spring, is the mixture of emotions that comes with sharing a team with someone operating at a level that makes even elite players feel ordinary. There is genuine awe. That much is undeniable. Freddie Freeman, who has won a World Series, who has had his own legendary moments in a Dodgers uniform, has said openly that watching Ohtani work is unlike anything he has experienced in his career. Not because of the numbers, Freeman understands numbers, lives inside them, but because of the consistency. The refusal to have an off day. The way Ohtani treats a spring training session with the same preparation and intensity as a playoff start. But beneath the awe, there is also something more complicated. There is pressure. When you have a player of Ohtani's caliber, a player who is visibly, measurably, historically transcendent, the standard for everyone else rises without anyone saying a word. No one tells the pitching staff to be better. No one lectures the hitters to work harder. But Ohtani's presence does that silently, simply by existing in the same space. His routine becomes a mirror. His preparation becomes a challenge. His results become a question that every teammate, consciously or not, begins to ask themselves. Am I doing enough? What Betts saw in those 4 innings did not appear from nowhere. Anyone who has observed Ohtani closely, and the Dodgers coaching staff has had the privilege and the education of doing so every day, understands that what happens on the mound is simply the visible result of an invisible process that most people never fully see. Ohtani arrives before anyone else. He leaves after most have gone. His preparation is not dramatic or performative, it is quiet, methodical, and almost unsettlingly complete. He studies opposing lineups with a level of detail that pitching coaches spend hours on. He knows the tendencies of batters not just in general, but in specific counts, in specific situations, with specific pitch types. He does not guess on the mound. He executes. His physical preparation is equally precise. The diet that his former mentor Yu Darvish introduced him to years ago has evolved into something even more refined, a system that adjusts in real time based on what his body is telling him, what the schedule demands, what the data shows. During spring training meals, while teammates load up casually and talk about the season ahead, Ohtani works through his plate with the focus of a man completing a task that matters. Because to him, it does. One Dodgers staff member, speaking informally, put it this way: most players are great at baseball. Shohei is great at becoming better at baseball. Those are 2 completely different things. The Dodgers have won back-to-back World Series titles. That alone places them in rare company in the modern era of baseball. But the pursuit of a 3rd consecutive championship is something else entirely, a pursuit that tests organizational depth, pitching health, mental resilience, and above all, the ability to sustain excellence when the entire league has had a full off-season to study and prepare for you. In that context, Ohtani is not simply a weapon. He is a philosophy. The Dodgers front office, their manager, and their veteran players have quietly acknowledged that Ohtani's presence reshapes how opponents prepare, how series are pitched, and how the psychological weight of a playoff run feels from the other side. Teams don't just prepare for the Dodgers lineup. They prepare for Ohtani specifically, and in doing so, they often over-prepare, distort their own strategies, and lose the natural rhythm of how they would otherwise approach a series. Ohtani, without doing anything beyond being himself, makes opponents think too much. And thinking too much, in baseball, is dangerous. But the Dodgers have also learned something from the inside that is perhaps even more valuable than his talent. They have learned that Ohtani does not let the weight of expectation alter his behavior. In a clubhouse chasing history, where every game carries slightly more gravity than it otherwise might, Ohtani goes about his work the same way he always has. Calm. Prepared. Present. Freeman has noted this. Betts has noted this. Even manager Dave Roberts, a man who has navigated the highest pressure environments baseball offers, has spoken about Ohtani's ability to normalize the extraordinary, to make a pennant race feel, from inside the clubhouse, like simply another opportunity to do the work well. Let's return to those 6 words. He's not even human anymore. On the surface, it reads as praise, elevated, almost mythological praise. But Betts is too smart for simple praise. What he was expressing, if you listen carefully, was something closer to a reckoning. Baseball is a sport built on the assumption that human limits exist, that even the greatest players have a ceiling, a point at which age, fatigue, or the simple complexity of the game catches up with them. Hitters make adjustments. Pitchers lose velocity. The game finds a way to balance itself. What Betts was observing in those 4 spring training innings, and what the Dodgers as a whole are quietly grappling with, is the possibility that Ohtani may not be subject to those same limits. That whatever ceiling exists for him is still somewhere above where anyone else has ever been. That is not a comfortable thing to witness, even from the same dugout. It is thrilling and humbling in equal measure. So what does Darvish's homework look like for the Dodgers? What does Betts do with the realization he expressed out loud in that media session? What do Freeman, Roberts, and every player in that clubhouse do with the living example they share a locker room with every day? Darvish, now advising Samurai Japan, asked his players a similar question: will you simply admire Ohtani's performance, or will it inspire concrete changes in your own life? The Dodgers face that same question, not as a national team preparing for a tournament, but as a franchise preparing to chase immortality. Because a third consecutive World Series title would not just be a championship. It would be a statement about what is possible when an organization builds itself around a player who has quietly, methodically, refused to accept the limits that the sport assumed were universal. 11 strikeouts. 4 innings. And a teammate standing in the dugout, shaking his head. He's not even human anymore. Maybe that's the whole story right there. Maybe the Dodgers don't need a strategy for chasing a third championship.